time for Voice of Indie. Your hosts today are Beem Weeks, author, producer, and marketing monster for independent multimedia publisher Fresh Ink Group, and Stephen Gies, author, producer, composer, and publisher for Fresh Ink Group.
Good evening and happy Wednesday, hump day, everybody, and welcome to the Voice of Indie podcast. This is episode number 101. I am your host, Mr. Beem Weeks, and with me, as usual, is Mr. Stephen Gies. How you doing tonight, Stephen?
I'm doing great. It's July already. We're past 100 episodes. We're at 101 now, and just rocking and rolling, cruising through the summer, doing this podcast thing like we know what we're doing. Pretending anyway. Yeah, my favorite activity the last couple of weeks actually has been frogging, going out and watching frogs eat, believe it or not. We've got singing tree frogs here, hundreds of thousands of them, and they live in the trees. These are all 100, 125-foot trees or whatever, so if you go out there at night and just sit on the deck, it's loud enough that you'd have to speak loudly to somebody sitting next to you to be over the cacophony of all the frogs singing. And these singing tree frogs mimic. They mimic other frogs. They mimic other sounds. They mimic birds. They mimic cell phones. I've heard car horns. I've heard car horns in the trees a couple of times. And I'm not
what are they,
making
mocking
this up.
frogs?
I am not making this up. Last week I went out there and the pine trees were pollinating, and that kind of gets to me when that happens. And I was sitting out there on the deck coughing. And 15 minutes later, I swear, a frog sitting up on the window eating bugs coughed back at me. And I just thought that was just the funniest thing ever. I sat out there 2 more hours waiting for that frog to cough, and he wouldn't do it. But then the next night I went out there, and I heard at least a dozen frogs up in the trees coughing. So that is pretty cool.
Well, you're in Alabama, and I hear a story in there. A mocking frog.
Yeah, the mocking frog. Yeah, well, we've been 100 degrees yesterday, 98 degrees today, so we're hot down here.
Yeah, we were actually kind of mid-70s today after upper 80s and lower 90s the last few days. But it was a nice day today because we had a lot of rain this morning, which we needed, so it cooled things down. Hey, listeners, you guys are listening to this show because you enjoy interviews with indie authors and musicians and whatnot. Well, today over on the WhenAngelsFly.net blog, Mr. Stephen Gies is over there being interviewed by Mary Schmidt.
Ooh, I got to read that.
She's been on this show a couple of times, and I was interviewed over there last week. So go over to WhenAngelsFly.net, WhenAngelsFly.net, for all kinds of indie author interviews. Mary does a really cool job over there, bringing you different writers from different genres and different sources. So get over there and check it out. And while you're there, be sure to hit the like button, share it on social media, and show Mary some love for her blog and help her build that, as she's doing a lot of cool things for indie authors. Now, tonight, if you want to be part of this show, and we want you to be, whether you're joining us on Twitter using the hashtag Fresh Ink Group or calling in, here's how you can do all of that cool stuff.
Call 516-453-9902 right now with your questions or comments for tonight's guest, or post a note on Twitter with hashtag Fresh Ink Group in the body of the tweet, and we'll read it on air. That's 516-453-9902 or hashtag Fresh Ink Group on Twitter.
All right.
Oh, cool. I just sent a note to Sam, our marketing teenager. Tell him to make sure to put that in next week's newsletter about Mary's blog, because that is a very cool blog. Mary has graciously agreed to interview a number of our other authors as well. So in the coming weeks and months, you can find some other Fresh Ink Group members over there. That's definitely worth checking out. Yeah. So, as become the tradition of late, I went over and logged in to see how our print sales were going this week, and I'm ready to tell you what the top 5 are. I know many of you tune in for no other reason than just to see what that is. In the number 1 slot this week, we've got the hardcover edition of The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip by Country Music Hall of Fame drummer Mark Herndon, who spent decades playing with the supergroup Alabama. We published his memoir He lives down here in Alabama, not too far from me, and he's married to country music star Leah Seawright, who's working on her new album right now too. So this is cool. This book is a memoir, and it's a story about growing up, getting into music, his love of flying as well, because he's a pilot, and all of his years with Alabama, going out on the road, meeting the rich and famous, and dealing with fans and all that kind of stuff, and the scandals and the drinking problem and the lawsuits and all that kind of stuff too. So it's a cool book. Check it out. It's our #1 print bestseller this week in hardcover, and if you go down to the slot number 3, it's our #3 bestseller in softcover as well. Woohoo!
All right.
Now, Robert G. Williscroft's coming at us again 2 weeks in a row with Operation Ivy Bells, book #1 in a Mac McDowell mission, of which there are 3 books out now, and the 4th book is just about written and ready to start getting put together. Operation Ivy Bells, a Mac McDowell mission. It's a Cold War submarine thriller, very popular book, and it's in our #2 slot this week. So congratulations, Robert G. Williscroft. In the #4 slot. In the #4 slot, we continue to be surprised. The Shearers, Dr. Marshall L. Shearer and Dr. Marguerite R. Shearer, both of them MDs, have a book out called Maximizing Happiness Through Intimate Communication, 3rd edition. The first edition was one of the first books Fresh Ink Group ever published. I mean, like probably the 2nd or 3rd book, something like that. We're up to the 3rd edition. Unfortunately, Dr. Shearer passed away 7-8 years ago, something like that. And we're just getting his website back up and running again right now. It's DocShearerMD.com. We're going to start pushing that heavily in the coming weeks, and pushing some of the other books that we have by the Shearers as well. But right out of the blue, about a month ago, this Maximizing Happiness Through Intimate Communication, which is a relationship book, sales took off. I mean, really took off. Jumped way up into the #1 slot. And it's still riding in the top 5-6 weeks later. So congratulations.
Wow. Yeah, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. And then in the last slot, one that we haven't been seeing in the lists lately, Naked and Transparent, 6 Vital Tools for Knowing Yourself and Attracting Healthy Relationships by Vladimir Kalixty. She's a lady in Manhattan who runs a therapy business, motivational speaker, life coaching and things like that. And she's got this book out, Naked and Transparent, 6 Vital Tools for Knowing Yourself and Attracting Healthy Relationships. So that's in our #5 slot, which means that our #4 and 5 slots this week are relationship books. Quick, Beem, write one. It's the hot topic this week.
All right. How to piss people off in under 100 words.
Oh, I don't even have to work on that one.
I don't either. Okay, August 9th, we'll see the release of Still Not Enough, Minority Millennials in the Workplace by Janelle A. Jordan. And Janelle A. Jordan is next week's guest. So we should be having that in pre-sale by then, so keep an eye out for that. And
yeah. As of a couple hours ago, the Kindle edition is on Amazon.
It's on Amazon.
It is starting to populate. Those print editions should be out there in the next day or two.
All right. Now, to keep up with all this cool book releases and this show here and all things indie authors and Fresh Ink Group, subscribe to our newsletter. Here's how you can if you're not.
Stay on top of these podcasts and all things Fresh Ink Group with our weekly digital newsletter. New releases, videos, stories, excerpts, interviews, and more. Sign up now on the homepage of FreshInkGroup.com and be the one who knows what's what.
What?
Yeah, so what's going on with audiobooks lately, Beem? You still working on a couple?
I am working on some. As a matter of fact, I've just got a file in for Chapter 4 of Mad Max and Sweet Sarah by our young author, Ellie Collins. And I will get to work on that tomorrow. And the voiceover artist has made a promise that he will have all of the rest of the files in by this coming weekend. So hopefully within the next few weeks, that book will be done and ready. And Girl Wears Those Shoes, I got a few more parts of Chapter 8 in. I don't have the full complete Chapter 8 yet, but I've got enough to keep me busy, so I'm going to be working on that tomorrow and throughout the rest of this week. And hopefully that'll be done pretty soon too. This voiceover artist, she's quick, she's efficient, and so fun to work with as well. So
cool.
Keep your eyes and ears peeled on that newsletter that I just played the bumper for, because all this information will be in there when these are ready to go, including links to how you can order them.
That audiobook for Mad Max and Sweet Sarah. Mad Max and Sweet Sarah is the third book in young Ellie Collins' Greek mythology series. And she wrote the first book, and these are novels. These are chapter books. And she wrote the first one when she was 11, second one when she was 12, and the third one, Mad Max and Sweet Sarah, she wrote when she was 13. She's 14 now, I think. I think she's pushing 15, old lady. Got to watch out for her coming by and swinging her cane at you. But Ellie's a very talented young woman, and we've made audiobooks for the first two books in that series now. So this will be the third audiobook. It'll be a 3 audiobook series as well as a 3-book series. And the second book in that series was in our top 5 of print sales last week too. So it's still out there making some noise.
Yeah. Now, one of our most loyal listeners, Verwayne Greenhoe, he's been working a new story on Vela. Many of you people might be familiar with Vela. His is he breaks it down into episodes, and he's currently on episode 34 of his murder mystery, a murder story, not murder mystery, but a murder story, and it's called In the Marsh. And he just posted that 34th episode. So this one's entitled Surrealistic Surprise. Our killer is having a bit of acid reflux, and for the first time since his rampage started, he is having a problem. So get over there and check it out. If you go to get on Twitter and hit the hashtag Fresh Ink Group and scroll down, or just go to Verwayne Author, at Verwayne Author on Twitter. He's got these story links set up so you can, if you're not familiar with it, you can get it on board at episode 1 and follow through. And Verwayne's a talented writer, so go check that out. And
he's kind of a likable guy too, if you hang around him long enough. He's on Twitter right now. He says, "I hope everyone is doing well out there." And he also pointed out, ironically, it was 101 where he is down there in Florida. So episode 101, and Verwayne gets 101 degrees.
There you go. We set it up that way, Verwayne.
Joe Congel's out there too. He says, "Good evening, everyone." Hi, Joe.
Good evening, Joe. Always good to have you in the audience as well. And a little while ago, Stephen had talked about Mark Herndon, his book, The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip. And he had talked about mentioned that Mark is married to country music singer Leah Seawright. Well, both of them have been on this show. And we did an episode with them, and it was a blast. We had people calling from all over the U.S. and Canada wanting to talk to Mark and, sharing their memories of seeing Alabama in concert. If you missed that episode and you want to check it out, guess what? It's in our archives. Now, you can find the archives of all of these shows, including tonight's show, will be in the archives starting tomorrow. And here's how you find our archived episodes.
If you miss a show, find us in the archive in the Fresh Ink Group channel on YouTube, on Spotify, or under the podcast tab at freshinkgroup.com, beamweeks.com, and stephengs.com. On YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, before we introduce today's guest, you want to go ahead and knock out one of the commercials, Beem? This would be
knock it out, like punch it in the jaw.
Yeah, this would be in celebration of Vladimir Kalixty making our top 5 this week.
All right.
Do you feel lost or broken? Are you trapped by fear, loneliness, and heartache, but unable to see a way out? Are you unhappy in your relationships and without a solution to make things right? I'm Vladimir Kalixty, a therapist in New York City who helps others all around the world to live and love from a place of emotional freedom. If you're searching for answers to all your struggles, my book, Naked and Transparent, 6 Vital Tools for Knowing Yourself and Attracting Healthy Relationships, can help you reclaim your life and attract more love, success, peace, and joy than you've ever imagined. Filled with personal experiences about love, loss, abandonment, Naked goes beyond a traditional self-help book. Part workbook and part memoir, Naked is an enjoyable yet informative must-read for women, men, and teens who suffer from low self-esteem, feelings of unworthiness, anxiety, shame, guilt, failure, and toxic relationships. It is a refreshing, honest, and stimulating experience that will help you open your heart and soul and discover a brand new you. Naked and Transparent is available in hardcover, softcover, and all ebook editions from Kindle to Nook and Kobo and more. You too can grow personally, spiritually, emotionally, and professionally to redefine who you are from the inside out. Naked and Transparent, 6 Vital Tools for Knowing Yourself and Attracting Healthy Relationships is proudly published by Fresh Ink Group.
Very proudly. Yeah. So our guest this week is Annette Rochelle Aben. We've had a lot of fun doing pre-interviews with her and getting to know her and finding out some cool things about her and her work. So we're real excited to have her. A lifelong love of books led Annette to try her hand at writing at every turn. Much of her working life allowed her to practice this craft as she has written for radio, television, and newspapers. Putting books together seemed like a natural transition for her writing, and to date, she has self-published 15 books. She's obviously a slacker. Over the years, Annette's books have won a variety of awards, and one of her television commercials was nominated for an Emmy. Welcome to the show, Annette.
Welcome.
All right. Who is that masked woman?
Yeah.
We don't know. That's why she's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your 101st episode. That's great.
101. How exciting.
Yeah. So how about you kind of let the people listening know where you're from, where you've lived in your course of your life, and where you're living now.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, I was born in the most wonderful city in Michigan called Highland Park.
Ooh.
I know, right? I was waiting. At the time I was born, it was in transition. It went from the great city it was in the 20s of the 1900s.
Yeah. Oh, it used to be a wonderful city.
Yeah, to where it wasn't so much by the end of the 1900s. But it was great, and it was fabulous, and nice little community at the time I was there. We moved from there to Detroit the year before the riots. Gee, didn't we have, radar on there. And we moved from there to Westland in 1972, and I stayed there until I escaped and went right back to Detroit because I missed it so much. And ended up in Toledo for about 20 years, and then a job brought me back to Michigan because it was a requirement. And about 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, I moved back to Michigan. So back to Westland, Michigan.
Back to Westland.
Yeah, so that's the living arrangements. I won't bore you with all the little cities in between because it would take way too long to mention that. But those are the highlights.
And there might still be warrants out in a couple of those cities, so we don't want to talk about them anyway.
Yeah.
We had a lot.
I might be in a protection program or two.
We had a lot of fun in the pre-interview because when you said Westland, I pointed out rather poignantly that's where I grew up. Turns out that you're living just a few streets from where I grew up, so it was kind of fun comparing, notes of what's there and things from the past and
absolutely. And we went to the high school.
Same high school,
yeah. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. So what kind of kid were you growing up? Were you into reading and writing from an early age? Did you want to be a TV producer when you were in kindergarten? What's going on there?
In all actuality, the strangest part of my childhood, which we didn't cover in the pre-show interview, and for good reason, because most people go, "What?" I was not a very how do you want to phrase it? Popular little child. I was very quiet, and I wrote a lot because it was required in school. We had to write book reports and things, and your penmanship had to be wonderful. The Detroit Public School education and the Highland Park School education demanded it. And then I was in Catholic school for a couple of years, and the nuns stood there with rulers, you will write that right, or heck you. And
was a lady would, was it?
But it was one of those things where I wrote because I was trying to do right by my schoolwork, and then when you have to write book reports or reports on Columbus or reports on how the bicycle was made, crazy, wacky stuff, I started to fall in love with reading encyclopedias and dictionaries. And to this day, I'd rather read a good reference book than almost anything else. So I'm so boring. But
yeah, I like doing that though too. That's cool because that's knowledge. You're learning about stuff, and it comes in handy.
And that led to a love of words. So words became poetry. And when I would feel frustrated or aggravated over this, that, or the other thing, and there was nobody to talk to but the dog, and she was really no help, I'd write it out in insipid, preteen maudlin poetry, which thank God nobody reads my stuff anymore. And that actually led to writing a really bad poem, and I did try to find it so I could read it to you because I would read it because no one can see me read it, that got published when I started in high school. The Detroit library system had a young people's literary magazine called Peer, P-E-E-R, and they published one of my poems, and I was like, wow, that's really kind of cool. So that was actually the first time I was published. I thought about that in 1971, and I was like, wow, that's trippy. And I still actually have one copy of that little, mimeographed with a paper copy cover stapled together in the center, but that's what they did. And it was really kind of nice of them because it gave a lot of people a chance to experience this kind of thing without ever realizing they might want to. So that was where that started. But, I was kind of a goofy kid that really, I much prefer behind the scenes than anything else. I would write for other people. I would do their homework. I would just, anything so I didn't have to be the one standing up in front saying, hi, I did this, because I really didn't want that kind of attention. So I could hide words. I could hide behind words.
As the star says, what I really want is to direct.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
So listeners, call in. Talk to Annette Rochelle Aben. Ask some questions. Make some comments. Over on Twitter, Joe Conjal has a question. You ready for a question, Annette?
Oh, absolutely.
Kay says, with all the different media you've written for, do you have a favorite and why?
Oh, gosh, probably television for two different reasons. I worked for cable companies, which started my television experience, both in the community access and the actual company itself that was the public access studio owned by the cable company. And my first employer was United Artists Entertainment. And not only did I get to help other people learn how to write TV shows, script them out, put them together, they found out I liked to write, radio copy, so I started writing television commercials, and that was an absolute riot because everybody that wanted a commercial, like Frank Smith's hot tubs, and you'd walk in and interview them, and they'd say, now I want to sell this hot tub and that hot tub, and I want to do this, this, and this, and I want my 4 daughters and my 8 dogs involved in it. I'm thinking, oh, dear God in heaven.
I would write 1,000 of those.
I tell you what. So I'd write 3 different commercials. The one they wanted, one that was absolutely abysmal, and the one that I wanted them to buy, regardless. So we'd present theirs first, and they'd be smiling. I'd storyboard it. Oh, this is really good. And, oh, I love this, whatever. I'd go, mm-hmm. Now, here's another one that you might want to consider, and I'd shove the crappy one at them. And you could see them, they'd be making faces and turning their heads and, wishing their phone would ring. Then I'd give them the third one. And invariably, they would get the third one. And on the way back, one of my coworkers would say, how do you do that? How do you do that? And I said, well, you show them that what they wanted is possible. Then you show them how bad it can possibly be. They're willing to take anything at that point. And that was the most fun. That was actually an absolute riot. I love doing it. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, I did that too for quite a while. Did over 1,000 of those local commercials that are through the cable companies that they run on the cable channels. Mm-hmm. And for most of them, I also composed music. And that can be real weird when you're working with the clients. Like we did one for a chain of Chinese restaurants, and this guy was adamant with my rep from day one. No Japanese music. Must sound Chinese. Must sound Chinese. So the night we were working on it, I brought in my two musicians that I did the studio work with, and I said, do any of you guys know there's so many Chinese and Japanese music? They didn't. So we just wrote something that sounded Asian to us, and when the guy got his commercial back, he said, oh, that's wonderful. That Chinese music. Yes, I do. So, okay.
Should have just played chopsticks for him.
Oh, I'm telling you, but those didn't always go that easily, and I'm sure you had a lot of those too, where it's like, well, what, you couldn't get my other dogs in there too?
Yeah, and there was at least a couple that did not want that last commercial. But I'll tell you what was really a kick. There was a company that did outdoor patio furniture. It was Labadee's Furniture, and they had
Labadee's.
Exactly, and they had an outdoor furniture thing. So we did the Labadee's Casual Furniture. So we did the commercial, and one day when I was walking from the production end of the cable company into the front where the customer service reps are, was this courier standing there. And they said, oh, Annette, you're the person they want to see. They want the master copy of the commercial for Labadee's Casual Furniture. And I said, why? Well, we need to take it to Broadcast House. And they were taking it up to, I think it was Channel 7 in Detroit. And I said, okay, I don't get this. But it was all arranged, everything. So I give it to him. And I think that was the station that Oprah was on at the time. Whichever one she was in the 80s, that was it. So I'm sitting at home that afternoon watching Oprah, and I'll be blasted if when they went to a local commercial break, on comes the commercial, it's my voiceover, and I grab the cat and go, look, Mom's on TV, look. And because they had got it so quickly, they didn't have time to revoice it. But as luck would have it, the next day when it played again, it was not my voice. But for that one brief, shining moment, I was on the Oprah show.
Oh, there you go. Cool.
You didn't have your VCR recording?
Dude, I didn't even have a cigarette to smoke. I was just going bonkers. It was just too much fun.
Yeah. Now, over on Twitter, Rowan Greenhoe says, good to hear there is another author from Michigan on the program. Yeah, no.
Yay!
Now, see, you got to realize right now you got a guest in Michigan, you got a co-host in Michigan, and you got a co-host from Michigan. So, hey, it's
we're all
time.
waving at you, folks.
Yeah. So speaking of brushing up against the rich and famous, you want to roll another commercial and this time hit the high road, Beem?
Well, why not? This is Old Home Week on the Voice of Indie podcast.
What drives a man to spend 26 years performing night after night? To persevere through a stifling tour bus, bad food, strange women, flared tempers, a plane nearly blown from the sky. Just how did that troubled military brat with a dream claw his way from dirt floor dive bar shows to the world's biggest stages? Aviator, author, and country music Hall of Fame drummer Mark Herndon lived that dream playing with Alabama, one of the most popular and celebrated bands of all time. He learned some hard lessons about people and life, the music industry, the accolades and awards, how easy it is to lose it all, and how hard it is to survive, to embrace sobriety, to live even one more day. Herndon's poignant memoir offers a tale at once cautionary and inspirational, delightful and heartbreaking, funny yet deeply personal. From innocence to rebellion to acceptance, can a man still flourish when the spotlight dims? Are true forgiveness, redemption, and serenity even possible when the powerful say everything you achieved somehow doesn't even count? That you're not who you and everyone who matters thought you were? Find all this and more in Mark's remarkable memoir, The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip, proudly published by Fresh Ink Group in paperback and ebooks, and now in the keepsake dust-jacketed hardcover edition demanded by true fans. Mark Herndon refuses to slow down, so look back, look ahead, and join him on the trip. He's taking the high road.
Yeah, you can find the video for that over on YouTube on the Fresh Ink Group channel. So just go to YouTube and type in Fresh Ink Group. And I got to say this. I read that book. That's a great book. And I'm a diehard metalhead. So reading about country music is not something that I would normally do, although I do have many country music albums on my iPod, but it tends to be the old school ones like Merle Haggard and Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings. But I'm usually into Megadeth and Exodus and Metallica and stuff like that. But this was a cool read. It really was.
Well, one of the things that makes it cool is that it's done, with a universality. It's not so much about the country music as about the life, being on the road, playing the big arenas, dealing with the fans, the ladies waiting outside the backstage door trying to get your attention, and dealing with the managers and the tour bus, and and in Mark Herndon's case, he was the pilot of their tour plane.
Yeah.
And he's got a story in there that's not too much different from the one that's in Almost Famous. So they had a big scare one time. So it's a cool book, and probably Fresh Ink Group's best-selling book of all time. I'd really have to dig into the numbers for that, but it's up there in the top couple.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's probably it.
Yeah, we published it in 2016. That's been 6 years now, and it's still this week. It's our number one print seller.
Yeah, and number 3.
And number 3, and probably 5 if we had another one.
Yeah. So go ahead. Go ahead, Stephen. You there? Stephen?
What did you do? Did you shoot him? What did you do to him, Beem?
I didn't do anything. I think he just dropped.
We lost Stephen.
We lost him. Anyway, so I was gonna
more drinks, buddy.
Day job. You're not. Are you writing full time? Do you have a day job? What's that all about?
Actually, right now I've sort of just I've been self-employed since 1997, and circumstances required that I sort of step back, recuperating from surgery a few years ago, and so I was old enough, and they said, well, you can get Social Security retirement, and I said, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. So I took it, and actually being able to write is something I can do 24 hours a day because I don't have a schedule like I used to have before. So anytime I'm urged to or asked to or prompted to, I can say, sure, and I can just write and read, get a chance to read a lot of things that I didn't have time for before. And it's a very strange thing for me because I am used to finding my own things to do or being self-employed, contracting and things like that. So this is a very strange life.
I can imagine. Stephen?
Yeah, we lost power. We got a raging storm coming through here.
Oh, my gosh. Safe.
Power came back on, but the internet hasn't come back on yet. So I'm calling in like one of those regular folks.
Yeah, I see the phone number light up. It's like, okay. That makes sense because, you were just gone, so that doesn't usually happen.
We poured everybody drink, and we did good.
Yeah, everybody got hammered,
Yeah. Everybody had to take a shot every time the power went out, right?
That's right.
All right.
Tequila.
So, that's my favorite of the hard drinks. I don't drink it too much anymore, but that's my favorite. We're gonna jump over to Twitter. Joe Conjul, he's got a tweet out here. He says, "Speaking of music, since you're from Michigan, are you a Bob Seger fan? Love the Live Bullet album." I'm a huge Seger fan. I grew up. My dad was a diehard Bob Seger fan, so I grew up with that, and I've got most of the Seger albums, including Live Bullet. So.
Saw him at Pine Knob. He was Aces back in the 70s. It was amazing. I'm going to tell you a really funny, quick story. My cousin Julie, who's now passed, a couple years older than I was, so she was the person I looked up to be. She read Tiger Beat and all these great magazines, and I remember her telling me one day, I know where Bob Seger lives. And I said, you don't know any such thing. She said, yes, I do. He lives in Ann Arbor. And being older than I, she had friends that were older than both of us, and they swear they got into a car and drove to Ann Arbor and found his house. Of course, she was lying sack of whatever, but yeah. But he does have, or did, a number of years ago, he had a little place down in South County, Monroe, where he works on cars. And when you drive by the place, you got to know where it is. So you usually know where it is if you want to get your car fixed. It's not too far from the expressway. And the sign of Seger's Automotive is the shape of the insignia on the Live Bullet album.
Cool.
Yeah, that was the last time.
What would have really been cool is if he was, where's Bob Seger's auto garage at? Down on Main Street.
There you go. But the guy who played keyboard in his band in about 20 years ago used to come into a little coffee shop where I worked at. And good-looking young guy, I wouldn't know him from Adam's House Cat. Don't even remember his name because he wasn't part of the old school group. But a nice guy, real nice guy. Tipped our waitresses very well, and yeah. So, but he would be they would rehearse every now and then at the automotive place. So, kind of funny you mentioned Bob Seger.
Yeah, Verwayne Greenhoe, he commented on Joe Congel's tweet there. We've had Verwayne on a couple of times, and he's talked about that. He got to meet Bob Seger one time out at some place where Bob was just kind of rehearsing. So he's got a cool story. But yeah, Bob Seger. I mean, if you're from Michigan, most people like Bob Seger. He's one of us.
Yeah, I didn't know who Bruce Springsteen was, but I knew who Bob Seger was.
Yeah, I didn't care who Bruce Springsteen was.
Exactly.
Bob is Uncle Bob.
Right. The myth, the man, the legend.
That's right. So, hobbies or interests? What do you do when you're not writing?
Oh, my gosh. Well, from time to time, I make jewelry, and that's been a lot of fun. I've made it for fun and profit over the years, so that's kind of fun. My favorite thing to make are bracelets, but I've done earrings and necklaces and anything but rings. So that's been sort of fun working with semi-precious and precious stones.
That's cool.
And what else, other hobby-wise? I love to cook.
I have a sister-in-law married to my older brother. She does the jewelry stuff, and she sells it on Etsy, and she goes to these craft fair shows and things like that and makes some pretty good money doing that.
You can. I was very lucky that a little store that I worked at, which I didn't work in the store. I rented space from them to do something entirely different. And I would make bracelets, these really cool bracelets using Swarovski crystals, however. I've heard them pronounced so many different ways. And they actually would sell them in the store. And then I decided to make ankle bracelets one year, and I went around to different beauty salons that had tanning booths. And I'd set them up with a display and the whole 9 yards, and I'd say, look, you sell this bracelet for $9. I'll keep 6, you keep 3. It's an easy. And these people would make money hand over fist because they'd walk out from getting a tan and go, oh, these are really cool. These are ankle bracelets. Oh, this will go good with my tan. Next thing you know, she'd walk out with 3 bracelets, and it'd be like, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
All right. I see you're back on.
Internet came back on, so I'm real again. Just in time to say, hey, why don't we check out an Operation Ivy Bells commercial, since that's our number 2 bestseller this week.
All right.
Now, from Fresh Ink Group and best-selling author Robert G. Williscroft, Operation Ivy Bells, a Mac McDowell mission. An update of the popular bestseller, now launching the Mac McDowell Mission series. Saturation Dive Team Officer in Charge Mac McDowell faces the greatest challenge yet, leading his team into a critical Cold War mission of counter-Soviet espionage and proving what brave men can achieve under real pressure, the kind that will steal your air and crush the life out of you. Operation Ivy Bells is proudly published in hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats by the Fresh Ink Group.
Book 1 of a 3-book series, with book 4 coming out in the next couple of months.
All right. Sweet.
So I think it's time we start talking about Annette's writing, don't you?
Yeah.
So what about
writing thing? What's
How
this
long have
writing
you been
thing we heard
writing?
about?
What's your evolution? Did you learn to read and write young, or was it not until after college, or what's going on with your writing?
No, my entire week of college, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I majored in journalism at Madonna for an entire week, and I quit.
Madonna?
Isn't that scary? And she's also from Michigan. What's
Bay City.
Amen. But no, my father used to read to us when we were children, little golden books and anything he could get his hands on. I remember we would all sit on his lap and he'd put his arms around us and hold the book, and what's that? We had no idea what it was, but we were listening. We were fascinated. He turned the pages, and there were more. It was like the book was speaking to us because we couldn't see him. He was obviously behind us, and that led to a lifelong enjoyment of reading. That was just absolutely fascinating. In fact, in the 60s, he used to sit at the dining table and preach Ayn Rand, Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. It's like I can't get them out of my head because he would sit there and read them and get all passionate and excited. So it continued, but no, I've loved to read. In fact, I took 27 English courses in high school because I just loved words and reading and writing, composition, short stories, whatever, the classes. And then actually writing, I've been writing poetry my whole life. I think I've written over 10,000 poems. And one day I thought it would be really kind of cool to put them into a book. And I wanted to have a variety of things. So there's a couple of little poetic stories, a bunch of photographs I had taken, and these different poems and little one-line comment things in a book I published in 2008 called Perspective. It's all about replacing one thought with another. And it went out of print. I had to republish it a few years ago, and then I just kept right on going. I realized I had this huge backlog of poetry. I wanted to do something with it. But blogging is what got me to do more, because there are several blogs out there, and I try to mention them. Every book that I publish, if somebody has prompted me to write that particular type of poetry, like haiku, I give a gentleman named Ron Van Hester a thumbs up, because through his blog we got a weekly prompt to write haiku poetry. So that became fun. Colleen Cheesebro, who has moved from out west to Lansing, Michigan, prompted us to write syllabic poetry. So a lot of my books, and one that's coming out soon called Abhanga Poetry, or about Abhanga, she gives us a weekly prompt. And then Charlie Mills up in Copper Harbor, all these Michigan people, her blog got me started writing short stories, which is what my current book, they're 99-word /fiction stories. And I've been following her for about 4 years, and finally I thought, I got to put these somehow together. And my father said, I'd like to read those stories, but I don't monkey around on the Internet. And I'm like, oh, Dad, honest to God, you've got a computer. I gave it to you. So I put them in a little book, which is Tell Me a Story in 99 Words, my most recent book, and I shipped it off to him. And honestly, I've gotten fabulous reviews. Everybody loves it, and I'm so grateful, because it's totally out of my wheelhouse to write stories. But it didn't mean a thing until my dad called me from Traverse City and said, I love it. I just love it. And I just cried. Because, you make your daddy proud. I don't care how old you are. That's, to me, that was like aces in my book. Yeah. And he loves it. So that was well worth the effort.
Yeah, my dad, he passed away just after my first novel, Jazz Baby, came out. I mean, literally months after it came out, so he never got a chance to actually read it. And that always kind of, bumped me out. But Colleen's living in Lansing now, huh?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she and her husband Ron have been there for about 2 years now.
Cool. Yeah, I remember her. I've known her online for years going back. So that's cool. All right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to know about writing process and stuff too, but let's introduce Gwen Plano, and then we'll get into that.
All right.
Inspiring and unforgettable, letting go into perfect love is a riveting account of a journey through the terror of domestic violence to a faith that transforms all. As a college administrator, Gwendolyn M. Plano lived her professional life in a highly visible and accountable space. But as a wife and mother behind closed doors, she and her family experienced unpredictable threat. Every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is assaulted or beaten. But to Gwen, this was her secret. It was her shame. Alternately heart-wrenching and joyful, this is a story of triumphs over adversity. One woman's uplifting account of learning how to forgive the unforgivable, recover her sense of self, bring healing into her family, and honor the journey home. Accompanied by glimpses of celestial beings, Gwen charts a path through sorrow to joy, and ultimately writes of the one perfect love we all seek. Gwen's story is heartbreakingly familiar. It provides insight into the phenomenon of domestic violence. Understanding that murky world may provide the reader with the skills to help his or her sister or friend or neighbor. Whether victim or friend, readers will be inspired by the author's courage. Letting Go into Perfect Love by Gwendolyn M. Plano is available now as a Fresh Ink Group edition in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook editions. The Audible audiobook edition is also available at Amazon. Order your copy now, and you may see your own challenges a little differently.
Wow, what a remarkable coincidence. All these people publish with Fresh Ink Group. What are the odds? But that's a cool video. You got to get over to YouTube, go to the Fresh Ink Group channel on YouTube, and please subscribe while you're there, because we look all the time, and sometimes, it really hurts our feelings if there's no new subscribers. Check out that video for Letting Go into Perfect Love. It's a beautiful video, and it's a great book, and we're great fans of Gwendolyn and M. Plano, and we're proud to have her.
All right, so tell me a story in 99 words. What are some of these stories about, and where did these ideas for these stories come from?
Well, Charlie Mills is the creature who brought it all together. I call her the creature from my inner Black Lagoon, although she doesn't know that, so she's listening. I'm just funning with you, Charlie. When she started posting through carrotranch.com, which is her site online, these prompts for flash fiction, I can say that word, every week, 99, no more, no less, words, I thought, well, okay, I'll try it. Now, mind you, this was back in 2017, this started. And I wrote a couple, that was kind of fun and whatever else. But the encouraging things would come when people would say, oh, well, what happened with this character, or what about, I thought, character? I got to 99 words and stopped. What do you mean what happened with the character? I have no idea what happened to the character. So I started thinking about it when the next ones would come. And I didn't write every week. In fact, sometimes I'd go months. But it was because of that I accumulated close to 140 of these little 99-word stories. And I sat down one day and thought, well, I got to re-edit these. I got to do something with them because I could do better than what these are. But that's how it started. That's what started me putting the stories together. And I wanted 99 99-word stories. Well, I only liked 75 of all the ones I had, so it's 75 99-word stories. But I don't bother mentioning it. It would have been fun to say 99 99, but yeah, whatever. So that's what started it, and I give her site credit in the book because and she's still doing it. She's still prompting us left and right, and it's fun. I mean, sometimes the prompts are words, sometimes they're scenes or situations, other times they're phrases, and it's kind of fun. It really is. So I invite anybody who's blogging or follows, because there's so many sites out there where they'll give you a prompt. There's one gal that does a whole set of prompts for a whole month. Write about this, write about this. Do it. I mean, you've got nothing to lose. You don't have to show it to anybody. But if you really want to write, why not play around with it that way? And if you are blogging or you are sharing it, you will get feedback. Whether you like the feedback or not, there's validity in what everybody says. You can get something on anything.
Oh, yeah. So what are some of these stories about? Just, give 2 or 3
Well,
examples.
some of them are bots. They're based on true stories that were a way for me to work through or talk about things that were really strange. Like one of the very first stories in the book, because they go alphabetically, is called Bedfellows. And all the people involved in it are gone, so I don't feel badly talking about it. When my mother was little, she was the youngest out of 13 kids, and she and her family had a beautiful old house in Highland Park, which we eventually moved into and bought. And she slept in a little room off the bathroom on the second level that she actually had to lock at night to keep various gentlemen in her home, including her father, from coming in and raping and beating her at night. So the story Bedfellows is as much of a true life account as I could finagle into a 99-word story. And what's really scary is my family knows that. And they say, oh, Bedfellows is about Mom, or your mom, wasn't it? Even my dad said, this was about your mother, wasn't it? And I said, yeah, Pop, it was. But that seems to be one of the most popular stories in the book, and it just freaked me out because it wasn't like I set out to write that kind of story. I literally just wrote what happened, and I was shattered in a way that people seem to refer to that one almost immediately in a review or in a comment. Oh, in Bedfellows, you got to read Bedfellows, and I really got caught up in Bedfellows. But it was a compliment because I realized that I could say something in such a way that it would touch somebody. Very much like Gwen. I did read Gwen's book, a wonderful book, by the way. I love Gwen. She's a phenomenal person as well as a writer.
Yeah, she's a wonderful human.
Exactly. So when you do talk about things like that, they do strike chords. So that's what one of the stories is about. And other ones are silly. Like there's a story that she asked us to write about gnomes. And I thought, gnomes? The heck am I going to write about gnomes? Give me a break.
Cities
so I
in
thought
Alaska?
about it. Yeah, exactly. So I thought about it, and that story is about one of our cats here, Claudius, and how he likes to sleep on top of bookcases, don't most cats. And here in our house, the bookcases are cleared at the top for him to do that. But at Christmas time, my sister decorates them with little elves and whatever else. And how Claudius just decided he wasn't having any of it, and he would knock them all down and rip the tinsel off. And the last line says, "Be it ever so humble, this is no place for gnomes."
Oh.
Couldn't think of anything else to write about darn gnomes. So go from the silly and made up to whatever. But it's got to be where the prompt takes you. And sometimes the prompt, my favorite story, which nobody mentions, but they quote lines from it, was about a woman who commits suicide. And we had to talk about stars in the sand. And I thought, stars in the sand? And the last line is, and her tears glistened like stars in the sand. And I thought, okay, that works. So that had nothing to do with anybody. I don't know anybody that committed suicide by walking into the water until they drowned. But that's where the prompt took me. And I have no idea how and why. It just did. So I think that's kind of fun. It's fun to see where the words take you. And sometimes the words don't ring a bell with me at all, and I just ignore it. And I promote it, hey, follow this, prompt this week, but I don't do anything with it. So those are three. One real life, one kind of real life but made up, and the other one totally out of my imagination. And some of the stories weren't even part of her prompts. I just thought of things to write about. But do you guys remember Eloise? Stephen might. I don't think Beem does. Remember Eloise?
Yeah,
Steve?
Ellie, you're talking about the
insane asylum.
The insane asylum, yeah.
Exactly. Well, last
right
year
there on Vinoy Road.
They turned it into a Halloween haunted house attraction and charged money for it.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
Got Alice Cooper out here actually to be the ribbon cutting kind of person, and renamed the street behind Michigan Avenue as Alice Cooper Boulevard or some crazy thing.
Sweet.
Well, we happen to know that it is haunted. I had an uncle that lived there years ago, and my sister and I both know how haunted that place is, and we were just appalled that they did it. But we had to write a story about a haunted something or other. So that's where the story in the book, Eloise, that is with my sister's nickname in Spanish is Pilar. That is a true story, with the exception of the fact that it happened at the haunted thing. That place is haunted, and the fact that they're doing that is, I'll get off my soapbox now, but it's kind of creepy. But
So some of the buildings are still there?
Some of them are.
Because I remember about 20, 25, probably 30 years ago, they tore most of them down, and they were using a few for offices, like CETA. Remember the old CETA programs, the job programs and stuff?
Correct.
They ran those out of the buildings right there facing Vinoy. But that place was a creepy place when I was a kid. You'd ride your bike past there, and you could almost hear the screams from the basements and stuff like that. It was weird.
Underground tunnels where people died.
It was catacombs under there. There's all kinds of stuff. I read an article one time about somebody went exploring it. Said, "Whoa, there's stories down here that'll never get told."
And Alice Cooper.
Alice
Cooper.
And Alice Cooper, another Michigan.
Another Michigan.
I've seen Alice a couple of times in concert. That dude puts
Robin
on
Williams, Tim Allen. Quick, how many you got?
Oh, yeah, how many you want?
Grand Funk Railroad.
So many of them. Absolutely. Oh, my gosh. Too scary. But anyway, that's what's in the book, and that's part of my process of writing is I have to bounce it around, and sometimes things just fly right out of me. They're right there. Other times I really got to think about it. But if I can inject some kind of humor into it, I find my writing is easier. If I try to get too dry and serious, then I'm too dry and serious for me. And yet I find that I got to do a bit of a balance because not everybody wants to sit there. Okay, another laugh. Ha-ha, great, Annette. 38th laugh in a row. Great, Annette. You got to kind of split it up, especially if you're putting it out for public. I suggest, unless that is totally your thing and you're writing something that is so humorous that it's one funny after another. But you had to have found yourself, Stephen, when you're writing for movies or television shows, there's an arc. You got to go up, you got to go down, and you post for a while and up and down and up and down. And you can't just, it's not a straight ha. Even Chaplin didn't even do that.
Yeah.
Laugh through it.
I always thought like a series of boxes, and all the pieces have to fit into those little boxes. This box is 4 minutes and 10 seconds, and then the next box is 3 minutes and 10 seconds, and everything has to fit into the pieces. Yep.
So I appreciate it.
We do have a couple more comments on Twitter. Jan Sykes has joined the listening audience. Welcome, Jan. She says,
Jan.
Annette, that is such a tragic story about your mother, but I did like the story when I read it, even though it went dark.
Thank you.
And Joe Conjul says you could have a volume 2 and write 24 new 99-word stories and sell them both together, and then you would have it.
And you'd have all 99, right?
All 99.
I consider that. That's not a bad idea. I will consider that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
well, I was going to ask you if you do think that you've got another 99-worder in you, because that's something you could put one out every few years, it seems. Gosh,
I have thought about it. I really have. I know that the number with the number within a number thing is coming to me in for a variety of different things. For instance, there's the syllabic poetry, which is how many syllables are in this line, how many are in this line, and there's so many different kinds out there. Every time I turn around, Colleen's hitting us with a new one. I'm like, stop it already, It's like I've had time to learn this one. Now you're teaching us this one. Leave it alone. But I thought what would be really kind of cool would be to count out, how many lines are in, for instance, the Abhanga. It's a 4-line poem, 6, 6, 6, and 4. And I thought, okay, 6, 6, and 6 is 18, and 4 would make it 22. I hope I did my addition right. I wasn't really good at math. So I thought, well, what about 202 or 222 Abhangas? And right now I've got 350, so I'd be hacking back some of those. But, my mind's going with this number thing. How many do I put in the book? How many do I put in the book without creating like a mini dictionary? Because I've got a lot of poetry I'd like to get out too. So we'll think about the little stories. I really will. But the ones that I rejected, they need to stay rejected because there's no hope. they need to go by.
Yeah, that's the stuff that they find about 5 years after you've died when they're cleaning something out and they say, oh, we found the lost manuscripts. And then
exactly.
That becomes
and then
the
they print
bestseller
it for
and
what he
you're
said.
remembered for.
Yeah. And that's when all the people come by and say, see, there's a reason she died. You should have lined her coffin with those. What are you doing?
So we got one more commercial we want to bang out here and ask you about Son of Buku. And,
great.
And then talk about where we can find you and see if you got any advice for authors.
Ooh, thank you.
All right.
Learning about autism, one mother's journey of discovery and love. A charter school, teaching methods, and resources is the book millions of families must have. Carol Tucker travels the road of autism and cerebral palsy with her adopted son, Justin, now a young man who routinely astounds physicians with his achievements. She is a special education teacher, recognized leader in children's advocacy, and one of the founders of Florida's first charter school for autism, where she served as director. Through photos and stories, Best-selling author Karen Ingalls shares Carol's journey, then offers a wealth of resources, teaching methods, school choices, and financial assistance options. With Karen's unique insight, learning about autism shows how one very determined mother and her family can rise above daunting challenges to thrive and find happiness. Learning about autism is published worldwide in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook editions.
All right.
Yeah. So, Annette Rochelle Aben, our guest this week. You've talked quite a bit about a story in 99 words. How about Son of Buku? Is it Buku? Buku? How are we pronouncing Buku?
Boo, scare you, blah, blah.
Boo.
My sister is a very, very talented artist. She can write, draw, or, yeah, she can write too, but she won't admit that. She can draw, she can paint, she can sculpt. I mean, she's phenomenal. And she loves to decorate for Halloween. And in our living room has probably got about 150 skulls in it because she just lives it all the time. But the front yard lawn, she spends all of September decorating and all through the rest of October. And people actually stop and take videos. So, what are you doing this year, Lorraine, and all this stuff. So, again, my dad, not being able to see what my sister did, I'd go out and take photographs of her stuff during the day. You know, the skeleton she's got out there. And she goes from the sublime to the ridiculous. So it's kind of fun. She has people coming up out of the ground. She's got skulls with snakes coming out of their eyes and things, and bloody bits in the trees. But I look at it because that is totally not me. I mean, me Halloween is we're going to wear little bunny suits, little princess costumes, and you get little Snickers bars. Okay, not my sister. So I go out and take pictures, and I'm looking at them, and I decided to write real snarky poetry with a haiku thought process, meaning 17 syllables. So I put it together, and I did Buku a number of years ago and shipped it off to my dad. He goes, "Oh, look what your sister did." And it's like, what do these creatures do when it's not Halloween? It's their day off. Well, Son of Buku, because she needed a follow-up, is the most recent edition where we did the pictures and recreated it. And I decided one day to enter it in a contest just for giggles and grins, and by God, it won an honorable mention. I was like, what? That's fun. So I always say, look at my sister, an award-winning artist, because it's true, and she is actually. But it's fun because you can, what do the skulls say to each other? And there's these three little heads on the ground. There's a clown head, a skull, and I forgot what the other one was. And the lines are something like, I don't remember a thing. I just remember somebody said, off with their heads, and well, here we are. That's the kind of poetry. So it's fun. So Son of Buku is an absolute riot. And I love doing stuff like that. So it gets my snark out and gives my sister some publicity for the work she does. And believe me, Halloween night, we are a very well-attended house. We'll get 200 to 300 kids that will come by, and their parents will stand on the other side of the street and videotape, because then she has the fog machine going and the lights are glowing, and it's really kind of spooky.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So you self-published all 15 of your books, is that right?
Yeah, every one of them. Formatted them, did the covers all myself. That's all my original art, all my original photographs, and some of my sister's artwork I've put on the front, took photographs of it and did it, yeah.
Well, you're obviously a person who knows what she's doing. Do you have any advice for authors out there, or wannabe authors, or people who want to be wannabe authors?
Well, all you got to do to be an author is publish something or write something. Like there's writers and then there's authors. I always think writers are writers and authors are writers that got something published. So don't be afraid to do it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're doing it for your folks or yourself or your kids or the neighbors. And I'm going to make a suggestion, and you can hear people groan, but my suggestion is if you want to write a book and you don't know what to write your family cookbook. It's the easiest bloody thing in the world to do. If you can type a recipe. All you got to make it. You just the title, what's it called, all the ingredients, how do you put them together, end of discussion. It's one of the easiest things to write. And won't your family be thrilled, your kids and your grandkids and your cousins, when you can hand them a copy of Grandma's recipes? I mean, seriously. And I've told so many people that, and they went, oh, I could do that. But I'm not a writer. I say, I'm not a writer. Can you type? Can you follow a recipe? Duh, instant book. But just do something if you really want to write, and write a lot, and then put something out there. the other thing is, if you don't know what you're doing, what I did was I looked through books and I looked at the way the pages are set up. I said, oh, they got a Library of Congress page here, and then they've got a dedication page here, and then they've got this. And I followed a format, created a format, and I do it with every single book. I literally grabbed the last one I had, and, you cannot copy this under penalty of death, or I get your firstborn horse, or whatever it is. And I put the same thing in all of them. So I changed a couple things up, but I basically created my own format. And then typing, I don't mind typing. I had to do it for work, so I know how. But if you don't know how, get help. There's a lot of people you can follow. Call Fresh Ink Group. If you know somebody that does this stuff, because you guys format, you do covers, you help people with writing, you do editing. I mean, you can horse around with Fiverr and get one person that does this and one person that does that, or you might find somebody that does it all. But if you're listening to this, why not get in touch with them? Because they do it all. Why not? Might as well. Yeah. Don't call me, because really, guys, I wouldn't. If I screwed you up, I'd feel really bad. These people have experience. Call them.
Wow. So you're available to be on the show every week?
But you know what? You can take that part out and just put it in every week.
There you go. Yeah.
We'll turn it into a commercial.
Yeah, it becomes our new commercial.
Over on Twitter, before we get too far away from the topic, Jan Sykes, she posted a comment here. She says, I think the concept of the combination of photos and poetry was simply brilliant. What did your sister think?
Oh, she loves it. She loves it. She's the first person I give a copy to. Yeah. And I show it to her. When you talk about beta readers and that, I've never had my books beta read, and I probably should have, because I find a lot of mistakes when I get the proof copies and go, ew. But I show her the proof and go, look at this, look at this, look at this. And she'll come back and say, I love this. Oh, look, you got so-and-so. And she names all her critters. Like, there's Blue Boy, and there's, Red Girl and all this stuff. She goes, oh, you got this. Oh, you use this one. And it's... So as long as I get, again, I want her reaction and my dad's reaction. If they're thrilled with it, it's a done deal. Publish it. It's out of here. Because that's who I wrote it for. So why not?
Well, make sure you teach her how to sign a book, how to inscribe a book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Too funny.
It's been a lot of fun having you on here. How do people find you? Are you on social media? You got a website? You got a blog? You're out there somewhere where you can be found, other than hanging out at Westland Mall?
Well, how could they find me? If you make a really good tofu stir fry, I will do anything for you. Well, almost anything. All right, so that's not good. I am on almost every social media except Instagram and TikTok, basically because I don't want to be. But I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest.
These are pretty much under your name, easy to find.
Annette Rochelle Aben for all of them. And they can also, my blog is AnnetteRochelleAben.wordpress.com.
Oh, easy enough.
And if you put that into Amazon, it'll come up, Annette Rochelle. You just type my name into a Google search. It will give you ad nauseum all those places if you can't remember where to find me. But if you type my name into any of those places, 9 times out of 10, it's going to come up with something for you. The handle on Twitter, though, is You Are the Expert.
Oh, okay. You Are the Expert on Twitter.
Right, exactly.
All right, cool.
Well, next time I'm in Westland, I'm going to come by and, as I mentioned in the pre-interview, throw a bag of flaming dog poop on your porch.
Oh,
now that I know where you are. But I got a feeling.
We're so looking forward to it. The cats will be ready to knock it off.
Yeah, your sister might incorporate it into the decorations. Who knows?
You never know.
Yeah. But thanks again for being on the show, Rochelle, Annette Rochelle, and keep us informed. As your books come out, let us know. We'll try to get you back on again. We'll make announcements in our newsletter and let the listeners keep up with what you're up to.
Yeah.
I most appreciate it.
It's been a blast. It's been a blast.
Yeah. Now, next week, as Beem mentioned at the beginning of the show, we've got Janelle A. Jordan. Her book is Still Not Enough, Minority Millennials in the Workforce. And then after that?
After that, we've got author Paul Hollis coming in, and he's somebody that we're going to learn a little bit about because we don't know a whole lot about him. So as you're learning, listeners, we're learning.
We've been seeing his name for years and years and years, but we figured it's time to get to know this guy. But then the week after that, we got somebody I know nothing about, Caleb Pirtle III, and he's an author. He's got some books, and we're going to learn some more about him between now and then. But we're looking forward to having him. And who's after that?
After that is Patrick Parker joining us in 4 weeks. So tune in for that.
And in the coming weeks after that, we're going to have retired Naval Commander Jerry Pate with his story compiler, Robert G. Williscroft, and he's got all kinds of cool stories about life in the Navy, being a Navy SEAL, working with submarines and whatnot. We're going to have poet Josh Stutzman, whose book we released a few months ago, and we're going to have longtime Fresh Ink Group member Jay Looney. He's putting out a new book called Practical Problems. It's got 10 plays in it.
Yeah, and coming soon, in the coming months after that, we're looking at a return visit from one of our favorites, Patricia A. Guthrie, and a new Fresh Ink Group author, Kenneth Lindquist, will be in the coming weeks, so tune in for those.
Yeah, Kenneth is the one we post
the newsletter.
Yeah, Kenneth is the one that we postponed a little while back when he was in an accident. He's got the 2 driving books. How to Teach Driving, and we're working on a website for him right now too called howtoteachdriving.com. Believe it or not, we actually got that URL.
Isn't that ironic? How to teach driving, but he's been in an accident.
we've got some great guests coming. We appreciate you all coming to listen. It's going to be hard for them to follow and act like Annette Rochelle Aben, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
So thanks again for being on the show, Annette.
Thank you.
Oh,
Annette.
you're very, very welcome. I appreciate it.
And we'll see everybody next time.
Next week, everybody. See you later. Have a good week and weekend.
You've been a part of Voice of Indy, a production of Fresh Ink Group. Spread the word, support our guests, then find us at freshinkgroup.com and be sure to hashtag Fresh Ink Group.